What is going on, RotoGrinders? Welcome back to the NFL Pick 6 show, week number 14, playoffs. Playoffs, if you're actually playing in season long. Of course, you specialize in DFS, but two people that know season long really, really well and DFS really, really well. Two of the sharpest minds in all of daily fantasy sports. Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis, John Daigle from NBC Sports and a Good Football Show podcast. Daigle, I guess we'll take a second. Sure, why not? Do you want to brag or not brag and say what went wrong this year for season long?
Everything. Everyone talks about
running back.
Everyone talks about the dead zone of running backs. Like the dead zone was drafting this year. That's what went wrong. No one stayed healthy. There were only small pockets of good players outside of Cooper Kupp, who just never goes away, whether it's garbage time, whether they trade for an elite receiver, it doesn't matter. Jonathan Taylor also has been amazing, but beyond that, there's a myriad of reasons of what happened with every single player.
Yeah, I was told to just not draft a running back. I made the mistake of drafting a couple, but I did make it to my playoff final with Russ Wilson somehow, and I think he's my starting quarterback.
Well, if you drafted Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, or Austin Eckler, you're probably doing just fine.
I have none of those. I don't know how I did it. I just got to weasel my way.
Not doing fun.
We're not going to last long. What's up, Hribar? How are the season-long streaks treating you?
50-50, some good, some bad. I've definitely got some teams that felt the sting of, the early round zero everything, and some that have worked out and dodged some landmines. So we're going to just play it by ear, try to finish strong. This has been like my best month of DFS though, like easily of the season. So we're going to try to keep that going strong through Christmas because the kids need gifts.
What are they asking for this year?
Honestly, nothing. They're all spoiled. They don't deserve anything. No, but it's me, man. It's me. I'm the one that wants all the toys. I'm still trying to hunt down a PS5, man. If y'all got PS5 hookups, I can't get any. I can't find the PS5s.
It's so weird because I got an email the other day that said you're registered for a PS5 giveaway, and I thought it was a scam. Like there's no way like they would just randomly select me, Sony. So like I was nervous to click on it, but it said like, hey, if you want one, click here, you might get a chance. And that feels like one of those Nigerian Prince deals, right?
I just ordered some stuff for me. My wife's yelling at me. She's like, it's Christmas. Like, why are you ordering yourself stuff? Like I ordered like this new like charcuterie board and got like engraved stuff. She's like, what the hell? It's December 8th. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's a gift to me.
Did you click on it, Dean?
No, I might have clicked on it, but like I didn't click on anything beyond that. I only had one click. I didn't click on the click. But I was curious what it was, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get away from this. If I get a PS5 in 6 months, it's risk versus reward. I don't know what's gonna happen. My bank account's just gonna be empty if I have one more click or something like that. Or
you gotta ask Devin. You gotta run that through Devin and ask you how to click those.
Oh man. You guys know how to. By the way, we said this last week on the show, and I was just kind of being half joking. I was saying, well, if this is your first time listening to the show, week 14, week 13, where have you been? Someone in the comment section actually said, let's shout out Steve Henderson. I started following after this video. So we actually do get new people throughout the season. And we were talking about this pre-show, myself and Hribar, and like we were saying, like all the season-long people that are knocked out, like you'd think they would kind of sprinkle on over to DFS. And hey, welcome. If this is your first time playing DFS week 14, how this show goes, recording it on a Wednesday night. Of course, a lot of people watching it live with us. What's up, chat? Hey, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. So we focus on 3 games, 3 really, really interesting games, break it down from all sorts of DFS angles. And then we run it back, the main slate, of course, FanDuel, DraftKings. Then we run it back and talk about our favorite plays at each position amongst players that are not partaking in those 3 main games. Shall we dive in, Daigle? Are we ready to go?
I think we're good to go. Like Reeves also, I'm been having a hot 3 weeks here now. So, all I'm doing is trying to make up the money from the beginning of the year. But nonetheless, let's try to keep this streak going.
Yeah, I should have asked. Like, I know Hribar crushed on Thanksgiving, and I imagine he probably did well last week mentioning it. Did last week work out for yourself there, Daigle?
It was good on Thanksgiving, not good on David Johnson's slate. Great last week. I somehow on Sunday morning, and I tinkered with it Saturday night, I ended up on the Ravens-Steelers game, including in single entries, Roethlisberger, Deontay Johnson, and Mark Andrews. And so that wasn't actually that bad because, like, Roethlisberger, once they changed their offense in the second half, went to just pistol and shotgun. He could only like dump off and deliver strikes underneath. And like that got us there, in those smaller fields with like 750, 800 entries. So yeah, I actually had a really good week.
How about yourself, Rich? What was your best lineup last week?
Oh man, I actually on Sunday morning I actually went nuts on Dallas Goedert. Like we were like 20 minutes into the day, like feeling real good about how things were going to go the rest of the day.
If your tight end didn't score 2 touchdowns last week, Goddard, Gronkowski, or Kittle,
yeah,
go to bed, man. That really absolutely destroyed it. Walloped.
I actually ended up playing only one lineup that had Foster Moreau and ended up on a bunch of Goddard and Kittle. So on the field, like just massive leverage because Foster Moreau had his one catch. It turns out it did matter that he only had one catch in the second half of the Dallas game as well for being out there. So he actually didn't even like run as many routes and play as many snaps as people. He still did a good healthy amount compared to other tight ends, but he did not play 100% of snaps and was off the field some during that game.
And we talked about it.
Okay.
If you were getting off Foster Moreau, like that was naturally being contrarian since everyone else is going to come in on him. And I was genuinely 50-50 all weekend. It's in some lineups, I liked it better. In other lineups, I knew I had to eat one of the cheaper receivers like Devontae Parker or Josh Reynolds in order to like be comfortable in my lineup. And so I just went away from Foster Moreau. So I just happened to get lucky because he was a good play.
All right.
Yeah, once Hurts was out, man. Once Hurts was out, I made the move. I was like, I got to get a bunch of Goddard now. So we'll lock it in.
Minshew, I assume.
Oh yeah. Well, in cash, I played Minshew in cash, not in tournaments.
4K on DK. Yeah, you have to have a good time. I don't know what he was on FanDuel. Probably
6-1
or something.
6-1.
Yeah. All right. Feature game number 1, Dallas at Washington. Washington getting 4 points. 48.5 is the total here. This is projected to be the second fastest game on the slate as far as the most plays, second most plays. Well, actually, the fastest in the slate because the fastest this week is Arizona and the Rams. That's not on the main slate. So, Rich, I guess we got to talk about the Dallas running back situation. There's been so much speculation about Zeke.
We don't.
And I
mean,
how healthy is Zeke? And,
Twitter has it covered. Twitter usually has it covered during the games. I mean, Zeke is dust. Pollard is, basically the reincarnation of Gale Sayers. And that's where we are now. But, grins aside, Pollard actually is dealing with the foot injury and didn't practice today on Wednesday. So keep tabs on that. But, I mean, Zeke's openly talked about he's just not healthy. And he said he also said, you have to drag me out the field. Like, I'm not going to sit myself. I'm going to play through this. I mean, over the past 6 games, he has 71 carries for 244 yards. 3.4 yards per carry. But the thing is, he gets all the goal line work and he plays on passing downs. So really all he's doing is just is serving as a roadblock to fantasy points that we could have elsewhere. And the interesting thing about this game is Washington, for as up and down as they've been defensively all year and as bad as they started the year defensively, the one thing they've been awesome at the entire year till now is they've been awesome against the run. They're second in the NFL in yards per carry allowed to running backs. They're first in the NFL in rushing points per game allowed to running backs. Think about this. They trailed more than any team in the NFL, more than the Lions, more than the Jets up until their bye. And they're still NFL teams are 5th in the NFL in pass rate against them. They're a pass funnel. And I think that the Cowboys, it's going to be another script like we had against the Saints, where they're not going to run the football effectively. And they're going to be more of a pass heavy team this Sunday.
John, is that where you're at as well? As far as the running backs, they're kind of sort of somewhat like stayaways. Of course, you can sprinkle them in tournaments and all that, and stay tuned as far as the Pollard news, or I guess the Zeke news too. There's still a chance that Elliott sits and Pollard plays. I guess that's possible. We'll see. Your thoughts as far as the running backs, or I guess you're more interested in the receivers, the pass catchers.
Zeke even said himself that he's been dealing with that knee injury since week 5. That's why he had that 5-game stretch before this last game, I believe, where he didn't have a run over 10 plus yards. This was not explosive whatsoever. And it seemed to have culminated. It seemed to have peaked this past week against the Saints, where you could tell, like, I hadn't seen him limp did he look good? No. But like this past week was when he limped. And reminder, that was their third game in 12 days. And they still gave him 15 touches to Tony Pollard's 9. And Pollard, like, if you played him at Thanksgiving, that's cool. It's a small slate. You play him in a redraft. I understand there's no one else healthy to play. But I mean, even Pollard has gotten lucky the past 2 games because he scored long touchdowns. On Thanksgiving, it was that kickoff return despite being out touched by Zeke. And then this past game, it took a 58-yard run. They don't even run outside ever. They finally did run outside once with the better back, and he exploded. So the argument isn't, can he do this more if he got more touches? Of course he can. The argument is, will he get more touches? And it's definitely no. And so that's just what we're on right now. So Zeke is more of a floor play that you're accepting that on this slate. I don't think you need to. If it was smaller, sure, but I don't think you need to worry about that. Whereas like the Cowboys, Rich even mentioned it, this past week, they ran 44 plays from a 1-score game script, and they had 32 passes and 12 running back carries. And that wasn't even them at full health, still missing some of their offensive linemen. I think this week we'll be at full health. We should have Amari Cooper back to full snaps. And so that's what we're interested in, because we now, we've only seen one game the past month really where all of them have been available. But in that one game, that's when they jammed CeeDee Lamb into a season high rate of snaps from the slot, and they just peppered him underneath for a team high target share in that game. So yeah, the receivers and Dak, I think, is obviously where we're all looking. And that's probably where the field is looking too.
What's interesting is that I'm running my optimals on a Wednesday night, so things change and all that, but none of the receivers, like no Cowboys at all, basically are popping up at optimals, which is interesting today. But, a 27, 28 point total. And there's other games that we'll talk about soon enough. And, Tampa, of course, and we'll see as far as the Chargers news as well, because that can change the slate as well. Rich, your favorite receiver on Dallas, when you consider the ownership and things like that and price, who's popping for you on the Dallas side?
100% Sedarian Lamb, for a lot of the reasons Daigle said. I mean, he's won their best player of the 3 wide receivers. He's the most talented one, and he's the guy that they move around the most and create targets for. And if he's going to be in the slot more than any other Cowboys wide receiver in this game, I mean, Washington is 31st in the league in defending opposing slot receivers, and they're 29th in touchdown receptions allowed to opposing slot receivers. So I think that it's also a matchup advantage for CD as well in this game. We also just still don't really have a good grasp on where Michael Gallup fits in when all 3 guys are playing, because the only game that all 3 guys played together in totality is a game the Cowboys won by 40 points. So we don't really have a good gauge on like, where does his target tree, like where does his target share fall? What is his route precipitation fall? Like we have to figure those things out. With Cooper, we know even when he was just the two-man show with him and CD, he was a volatile wide receiver too anyways. I mean, his spike weeks when he hits, he's had 2 top 5 weeks, and those were his only top 24 weeks in the season. So if he's going to hit big, but he's been completely volatile. So we have to figure some things out still a little bit with the other guys, particularly Gallup, where he fits in.
Oh man, John, what do you have for you as far as the Washington side? Gibson, probably the best play. If I'm looking at it, kind of shopping around specifically on DK, we're not certain about McKissick at this point. Of course, ideally, if you're rostering McKissick, you want Gibson. You want McKissick not to be playing.
He's going to play. He's practicing already.
Oh, that's basically assumed. Okay, fair enough.
He's practicing on Wednesday already.
Oh, I thought he was DMP today. He practiced it? Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
How much does that muck up Gibson? How much does that muck up that Washington offense? McLaurin's been, I don't know, John. McLaurin's been a little disappointing for me of late. You got to figure they're going to be chucking a bit, presumably down here to Dallas, 5-point dogs here. It's a weird game where I feel like I should like it more, but when I start digging in, I don't love anything. I'll have sprinkles for sure, but maybe I have a recency bias against McLaurin because I had a ton of them last week. It did not go well for your boy.
Just to clear up the injury report, because I wasn't sure either. There's so much happening. And I've gotten a few injuries wrong this week as well. JD McKissick, still not practicing Wednesday. Ricky Seals-Jones was limited today, was also limited last week. And so that's kind of, we're waiting on the tight ends, even though if Ricky Seals-Jones is active, I wonder if they treat him like Logan Thomas in his first game back from injured reserve, and he's still like a part-time player, and thus neither Seals-Jones or John Bates are the correct play because they're just mixing in at tight end. But overall, I mean, Terry McLaurin, we do this every week. We take advantage of shootouts, so this would be the one. Also, like we always talk about, Trevon Diggs, and he's not really a shadow guy. We always talk about him being an exploitable corner a la Marcus Peters, who dives in for interceptions, and that's why he's beatable. That's why he's to bottom 3 allowed in yards after the catch at Pro Football Focus among cornerbacks right now. And so it is a winnable matchup. Also because like Dallas's defense has really just been a bend or broke and don't break unit. They've only allowed 18.8 points per game over the last month, but their secondary has still been a sieve in allowing 257 passing yards per game in that span. And their interception numbers, of course, are bolstered after they play Taysom Hill with a broken finger. But nonetheless, yeah, I think it is an exploitable matchup for a hair on fire quarterback like Taylor Heineke, who also offers a slight rushing floor. I don't think we need to get there in the slate. Like, I'm listening if Rich has something strong to sell me on with Heineke, especially because, all the ownership's going to condense down to Taysom Hill and Cam Newton, who we'll get to at the end of the show. But overall, I think it is a good spot for Washington's offense.
Jump in here, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think this game is going to go basically how the start goes. Like, we've seen Washington, what they want to do since the bye. They want to come out and control game script and, kind of, matriculate their way down the field and not really let the opponent touch the football. So if they're able to, get out ahead and, force the, and they're able to keep away a little bit from the Cowboys, then this game maybe doesn't get there. But if it goes the other direction where the Cowboys strike first and they get out to a lead, then they force Washington to come out of this offense that they've been in over the past month. Then that's how we can get there. We can get back to our, non-game managing Taylor Heineke version, to our hair on fire Ryan Fitzpatrick-like version of Taylor Heineke, and we can have some fun things happen on both sides and some weird things start to happen. Because that's where I am with Gibson. It really is, and if McKissick doesn't play, then that changes everything. But, I still want to see Antonio Gibson get there in a game where they have negative game script and JD McKissick plays. Because I still believe a lot of what has happened so far to him outside of last week when McKissick didn't play has just been game script sensitive. We know he's a game script sensitive running back, and they literally have not trailed since the bye week. So I still need to see him before he's like an auto play for me, still come through in one of these spots where they could be losing by double digit points. And does he then lose reps and not really involved?
We know McKissick can be cleared by Saturday from concussion protocols, not like the COVID list. Like, you can easily be activated Saturday afternoon. Like, he's hot. That's a hot play if he plays in this one, because that's just such an easy run back. It'd be very similar to the Chiefs run back and playing him. Like, he kind of snuck under the radar as the player no one wanted to play in that game. But like, all you got to do is stack the quarterback, 2 receivers, and then run back McKissick. He had 16 touches in that Chiefs game. That's the kind of game script we're targeting here if he's active and available.
Is there anything beyond that? Are we considering Carter or Humphreys or Samuel or Sims or Brown? None of these guys, right? It's Gibson, McKissick, if he plays, obviously, and then there's McLaurin, and the tight ends probably going to be a mess. Is that what we're looking at, John?
There are just a lot of them. And more importantly, Curtis Samuel came back, but even in his second game, they didn't really up his rates that much. Like, he only went from 24% snaps to 30% Curtis snaps. And then he had 4 touches. Everyone saw 4 touches for -2 yards. So just overall, I don't think there's anywhere else to get there. Now, if Curtis Samuel, we know he was going to play even like 80%, I think it'd be interesting, but that's kind of a wait and see for whenever he does it, prove me wrong kind of thing.
You got anything else in this game, Rich, or shall we move on?
I think we pretty much covered it.
All right. Rematch, Raiders, Chiefs, 48 is the total. I feel like that dropped a couple points since the start of the week. That's what we're looking at right now. The Chiefs against the Raiders. Chiefs are currently a 9.5 point favorite. Like we said, 49 total. This is the last time, John, I think this is the last time in the last 4 or 5 weeks or so where we saw the Chiefs look like the Chiefs. Are they going to continue looking like the Chiefs, or going to be they've just been kind of disappointing as an offense, but 5 touchdowns, I think, from Mahomes against the Raiders the first time around. Will the Raiders make adjustments, or will they just, do their thing and Mahomes look like how he's supposed to look?
And everyone knows, of course, this is the last time we saw him good, as you mentioned. Also the last time he was over 300 yards. Or the first time, one game in his last 6, he's been over 300 yards. Otherwise, they've just become unwatchable and better. Ever since they got punched in the mouth. We talked about this last week, a couple weeks ago, whenever they played Tennessee and just got punched in the mouth in Nashville. That's kind of when they changed everything. And Mahomes, before that game in weeks 1 through 7, targeted running backs at a 15% rate, 27th overall in the league. Since that time, from week 8 on, 20% rate. Doesn't seem like much, but still 17th in the league with 7.5 targets per game to running backs. Even last week, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams led the team in receiving yards. That's who their leading receivers were. And since week 8, Mahomes, he leads the league in yards after the catch. 65% of his total production has come after the catch. They've just been a dump it off kind of offense. Now the question is, since we're getting this same defense from the Raiders, is this the one time we can bank on Mahomes? Because they didn't discount them either. I looked up thinking maybe we get the Tyreek discount. It's been literally 2 full months since Tyreek has gone over 100 yards, and DK doesn't care at all. They're like, nope, we don't care. Like, he could still end us at any moment. So they still kept him at his normal 8K salary. We still have Patrick Mahomes at 8K. So again, you can't really stack this game either, especially because we're still waiting on injuries to see like who we could piece in as cheap players and then put Mahomes and whomever else in our lineup. So yeah, that's just generally comes down to, is it a slower game? Do the Raiders try to slow it down with Josh Jacobs since they've just been a poor offense altogether, minus the time they played, man coverage defense like the Cowboys and lit them up? I don't know. That's kind of what we're asking ourselves. How much do you trust that the Raiders will still play the same game plan and just get run over again?
Will the Raiders be stubborn and try the same thing, Rich?
I mean, maybe, but even if you look in that game, because everyone will talk about the cover 3 splits and, them in the 2 high safety. Even in that game against the Raiders, when the Raiders went 2 high safeties, Mahomes was 8 of 12 passing for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, still very good even against 2 high safeties in that game. They were just in the bag that night. We haven't seen that. It's been fleeting, over the past 6 games, but there's a 3-game sample now going back into last year of them really torching the Raiders, and having kind of the game plan to beat this defense. Mahomes has thrown for over 340 in all 3 of those games. And in particularly guys like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce have gone absolutely nuclear. If you just look at Kelce's, game log versus the Raiders with Mahomes under center, it would put the T.Y. Hilton versus the Texans narrative to shame. So, I mean, those are absolutely monstrous. And the Raiders are a defense that's predicated on the type of defense they play is vulnerable to tight ends. I mean, any cover 3 is susceptible to, tight ends getting up the seam. It's a tried and true, one of the holes of the defense, and the Raiders, the Chiefs, have been able to exploit that, against the Raiders. And Kelce had 8 for 119 when they played. He's gone over 100 yards, and 5 of the 6 games he's played with Mahomes against the Raiders, under center. We saw Tyreek, he scored 2 touchdowns against them last game. Byron Pringle even scored a touchdown in that game, and he's been the guy kind of out there getting the cardio as the wide receiver 3 for the Chiefs, or wide receiver 2, I should say, for the Chiefs, with the third kind of target. I mean, I wish that the pricing was different, and I wish also, have the Chiefs been on the main slate enough for people to like care that they've been bad?
They weren't on it last week. That's the reason why the prices haven't changed. I assume that was a Sunday night game.
Yeah,
I don't know where they were beyond that, but yeah, I mean, it feels like they've probably been in prime time. The Chiefs, they're a national team at this point, 4 or 5 times this year or something like that. But whenever I play them on the main slate, they don't do well. I feel like that hasn't worked.
It's so miserable to watch them now too. They just 2021 took our Chiefs from us. It's like last year, Josh Allen being good was not fun to watch. Bad Josh Allen was a lot of fun to watch. The Chiefs being good, it's not fun to watch right now.
If I'm hearing, if I'm hearing Hribar correctly, it sounds like Kelce is the better play than Hill. Of course, Hill can get loose and catch an 80-yarder. He can get 2 80-yarders. But the quote, I don't want to say safer play, but like the one that makes more sense as far as, just scheme, I guess, is Kelce over Hill. Do you agree with that, Daigle? If you're gonna start your lineup with one of those two, do you prefer Kelce or prefer Hill?
And Hill still had like a big game. He didn't break the slate. I believe this one, it was a Sunday night game, so he wasn't on the main slate. It was his other 3 touchdown game this year that he wasn't in the Millie Maker winner somehow. But nonetheless, yeah, I think that's good. Again, it's just going to come down to, as always for Kelce, like who else opens up this slate at tight end? Like who are we comfortable with just in case Kelce puts a 100-burger and a touchdown on that position? Because that's when you really can't even pay down because you're not getting your money's worth there. So I think it just depends on who else we really want to play. And, without Waller in this slate, most likely, then it looks like Mark Andrews. There are a couple cheap ones we'll talk about at the end of the show. So overall, yeah, I think Kelce genuinely is, for this slate in particular, the better play.
Do you want to take a guess at what tight end right now is, what awful tight end, the tight end you do not want to roster is landing in the most optimals right now on both FanDuel and DraftKings? Normally, like FanDuel, that you find the money, and Wednesday night, understand that, but to take a guess, what's the tight end popping in the optimals right now as of Wednesday night that you don't want to roster?
I got a guess. You got one, Daigle?
No, go ahead. You take it.
I would guess it's Evan Ingram.
I was going to guess that.
It is not Evan Ingram. No, it's not Evan Ingram. But I want to shout out Chris Jamino. Chris Jamino won himself $100,000 in basketball. And just this guy, Jamino says he looks like Beetlejuice of Howard Stern fame, if that helps. You guys know, not of Michael Keaton.
Oh,
fame,
Jared Cook.
Howard.
Yeah, Jared.
There
Cook.
it is. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I like Jared Cook a lot because I think he's everyone's like arguing on Twitter about Josh Palmer versus Jalen Guyton, but the Chargers have been running 12 personnel at the 5th highest rate in the NFL, and they actually have a guy that plays in the slot already that doesn't play in line, Jared Cook. His route participation is at 66%, and he only runs 35%, plays 35% of his snaps in line. Like, he actually is their backup slot receiver. I feel like he's been kind of the answer to the question. And he's also direct pivot. One, he's direct leverage if Mike Williams becomes chalky, and he's direct leverage on all those other receivers. And I think he's direct leverage at the same price point against Austin Hooper, who I'm sure will come up at some point in the show as well.
Yeah, I mean, it all sort of in flux, but like, there's no leverage there if he's going to be super popular. But again, we'll see. Stay tuned on all that.
Oh, there's no way Jared Cook's going to end up popular.
They'll play
if those Chargers receivers are out. What do we know about Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, or is that still unsettled? Or wait and see, I guess.
It'll be more information throughout the week.
Yeah, there are conflicting reports right now. So like there's some reports that like apparently the Chargers have been hiding also the statuses for 24 hours. It's weird right now. It's very weird. We don't know.
Yeah. So we do know Keenan Allen has to have 2 negative tests. He tested positive for COVID. He has to have 2 negative tests before 24 hours apart before Sunday to be able to play. Yeah. Mike Williams is more of a gray area because Brandon Staley, he's a close contact and he's unvaccinated, but he also didn't test positive. So if he goes all 5 days of quarantine without testing positive, this is all this convoluted nonsense.
Yeah.
But if he goes 5 days without testing negative while he's in quarantine, he is eligible to come back and play. But we don't know when those 5 days actually started, like Daigle said. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail the show with this, but I thought at some point we were going to talk about this stuff anyway, so you might as well get it out of the way. Let's jump on over at Daigle. Let's talk about the Raiders. Josh Jacobs all of a sudden is a pass receiving back with the absence of Drake, right? Like, is that just a coincidence, or is that going to continue going forward here against Kansas City, where they're presumably going to be down? And for that reason, is Josh Jacobs all of a sudden a more intriguing fantasy play?
Well, not only that, but Jacobs became really interesting. A pivot. I didn't get there. I played Miles Sanders instead, which turned out just fine. But Jacobs was an interesting pivot the moment Jalen Richard got put on the COVID list on Sunday morning. Okay, now we're really talking, because we know they're still not going to use Kenyon Drake that much. But then when Drake got injured, and now we're looking at Jacobs and Peyton Barber most likely, that's when it gets super interesting. Just to run a season high 33 routes on Derek Carr's 45 dropbacks. And now we expect him to be used even more after, 9 target game in the passing game. He's the one with the high floor. That's why I think it's interesting. Like, you could play just Kelce and Jacobs and pretend like the Raiders are going to slow this one down, since Derek Carr has still just been so bad in the deep ball. He did hit on 2 of 6 deep targets, 20 plus yards downfield against the Cowboys, which, doesn't even seem like that much. And was high. I did have a high completion rate and passes 10 plus yards downfield. But overall, their passing attack has lost just so much luster without Henry Ruggs since the bye. That's why we're seeing Hunter Renfrow at least 9 targets in 4 of his last 5 games since the bye. Even Foster Moreau, we talked about, wasn't a full-time player last week. And Deshaun Jackson, even his snap rate went down, did not increase, because they still continue playing Zay Jones and Bryan Edwards. So the issue is, like, there's nowhere really else to go. Like, Hunter Renfrow is still an awesome play, still a good floor play. But overall, like, we know where the ball is going to go for the Raiders offense. And heavily, it's going to be Josh Jacobs.
Rich, Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of just, Renfro and Jacobs touching the ball. We'll see if Waller, comes back. He didn't practice today either. Dial into Foster Moreau. He played 85% of the snaps and was only en route on 62% of the team dropbacks. In week 7, it was, 86% route participation. The Chiefs will give up some production to tight ends, but I mean, the whole thesis of playing Foster Moreau is that like he's going to play 100% of snaps, right? Like that was the whole thing. That's all you kept hearing. So I mean, it would be the flop lag spot for him to come back and have 2 touchdowns when he's not chalk. But really, yeah, I mean, I'm really only concentrated on Renfro just because even with Jacobs, the floor could be high, but I mean, if this ends up to being a dog walk like it was the first time, then I mean, this offense has just been so bad. I mean, they've scored on 8. They have 8 touchdowns on 54 possessions since their bye. I mean, it's rough. It's a bad offense right now, and it's tough to really want attachment to it.
And if you take that Cowboys, I don't like to take away any games, but yeah, if you take that Cowboys game out, I mean, it's an absolute mess. Having said that, I still probably will play Moreau this week. I still think the game theory between him and also getting off Kelsey at the same position in the same game, I think is still kind of unique. And of course, it's just wish casting. Like I'm hoping he still runs more routes. I'm literally hinging on the fact that he was the only tight end to run a route for the Raiders. So hoping for more. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Renfro is like, Renfro, like for a large part of the season, it was like, all right, he's still not, the yardage still isn't there. He's still more of just kind of like a floor guy. And now he's gone over 100 yards in back-to-back games, and he's unlocked a little bit of a ceiling. But, I'm trying to think, what is his price on DK? Because he did go way up on FanDuel. He's 6'1" on DK, which is palatable. 6'7" on FanDuel is kind of a tough click. But maybe I'm just wrong because he definitely warrants it. The production's been there to warrant the pricing.
He was mid 5s last week. I think he was fairly popular, and he's going to get, like you said, super safe for like 8, 9, 10 targets. He essentially is the number 1 receiver. If they are getting dog walk, like you're talking about, say the Raiders are down 2 touchdowns, 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Jacobs is still out there, right? It's not Peyton Smith, and it's not Peyton Barber and Sutton Smith is a fullback. Who's Sutton Smith? Who's that person?
I don't know. Is he real?
There is a picture.
It sounds familiar.
I see a proof of life. He's the 3rd running back, apparently, according to our depth chart here, but not that you're roster. I'm just trying to figure out who would actually be out there. But yeah, I'm just trying to figure like if we might get a bunch of cheap little dump offs to Jacobs or something like that. Yeah. Just sort of thinking out, I suppose.
That's what it was this past week against Washington. Now it wasn't a blowout, of course, but like there was just nowhere else to go with the ball. I can't imagine that they would put in Peyton Barber if they were down 20, let's say. I think it'd still be Jacobs. I guess that's the bet we're making.
I mean, none of the other guys are any good. I mean, Deshaun Jackson's just not playing enough snaps. He'd be the one guy that you could say can get open on his own, but Bryan Edwards can't get open and Zay Jones can't get open. So, I mean, it's hard to throw to cover players. I mean, so.
All right, moving on. I think that's it. We're not really enthused about the Raiders. This is the game, right? Biggest total. Well, go ahead.
Quickly, I kind of think CEH is interesting as well. Like I know like he's kind of been lingering around, still sharing snaps and targets with Darrell Williams. But since we do know their running backs are their 3rd receiver, Byron Pringle, Josh Gordon, these guys just don't matter. Mecole Hardman, he's not even involved anymore. He was like demoted off special teams as well. Like there's just like we know it's Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams. And the fact that CEH is still out touching Darrell Williams significantly, even this past week, 17-8, because he is like the early down guy for carries now. I still think he's somewhat interesting in this game and going to go overlooked.
Yeah, I think he's a good play on FanDuel specifically. He is a little up on DK, but I think on FanDuel because he's still not catching passes. And if you can get the touchdowns, in this game. So I think if you definitely are going to onslaught the Chiefs, you should add Clyde Edwards-Helaire to that team. Especially in smaller field stuff, because then you can just kind of like accrue every touchdown. And the running back slate is bad this week. At least right now, we're on Wednesday and things can change, but we're coming off of a week where there was too many running backs to play to a week where find me some running backs to play on this slate.
Where is the Goldilocks slate where it's just the right amount of running backs? It feels like we haven't had that just yet. It's all or nothing.
I'm going to need you guys to make some sells though on running backs, because I mean, this running back slate right now on the surface is not good.
We were due.
Yeah.
We had too many good weeks where the matchups and the chalk were too good. We were due for a bad one.
Well, just wait till Friday. Like you said, it's Wednesday. Like basically is how these things have been going is by Friday, there are two dudes that are like sub 5K that end up being awesome and everyone's going to have them. We talked about Sony Michel on Wednesday last week. Like just wait until Darrell Henderson is out. And then and that just unlocked everything basically for everyone to play. And
That's why I ended up on Sanders because in my mind, it was like, okay, 4K Minshew. That's where everyone goes as a last minute reaction. I'll go Sanders in just as good a spot. I think the Millie winner had Minshew, Sanders, and Goddard. So we don't know anything. What the hell do we even know?
Well, I think if you're onslaughting games, like you should add the running back. And I would need a guy like TJ Hernandez to come and prove all the data. But I think that in a lot of and small field stuff, especially like what I play, I want to try to dominate the game. So if you get the game right, then you're probably going to be in a good position to win like that tournament and that smaller field stuff.
Let's see if we can find any running backs in this game. Buffalo, Tampa, feature game of the week from a watchability perspective. Well, I mean, Buffalo was just involved in the worst, most unviewable football game of all time. Set the game behind about 70 years or so. You actually had a nice tweet about that, Daigle. Pete Carroll was super excited to watch that offense for the Patriots. Good Lord, that was rough, man. That was not a fun football game.
They won though. I mean, the gameplay was genius. Now, I don't think it was like a Bills game plan. I think it was more of a win game plan because they were even running heavily when the wind was blowing in their face. So like Bill Belichick has everything figured out. Nonetheless, though, we kind of know what's going to happen let's start with the Bucs side. The Bucs called even this past week 51 passes to 15 runs. We know what they're going to try to do. Even in that game with Leonard Fournette, like he did score the 4 touchdowns, but they were still a pass heavy team. And I wanted to get a glimpse before I saw what the weather was. I was hoping to get a glimpse of what this Bills defense is without Tre'Davious White, like a cornerback who actually matters and like shapes the way their defense plays. I can't imagine they put like Levi Wallace or anyone just right in his spot and play the same way. And so like, I'm just curious, like what we think the Bills defense will be, because maybe they are now suddenly like a league average unit. And even that like makes a huge difference since their offense has been so faulty at times. It's been hard to pick when outside of like getting pressure, like when the Bills defense or Bills offense has been bad, but overall, like, yeah, if their defense also falls apart, that's what I'm concerned with here. But we know, you mentioned like the running backs, you know what's going to happen. It's only Leonard Fournette. We'll get to more than that in a second. On the other side, it's just a scatterbrained of 3 different guys. So overall, yeah, I'm just curious about like, is this Bills defense still respectable, or is this one like the Bucs are going to come in sneaky?
Rich, how does Tampa want to score? They can score however they like in theory, right? With Fournette or through the air. And yeah, White, I'm not someone that pretends to know every single guy at each position and who's like a number 1 on PFF, but I'm aware of White. I'm aware White is good, and losing him is a hit to some degree. How much does that hurt their defense, and does it matter? Because Tampa's like an incredible offense, incredible force, and who cares who their 11 guys are? They can do whatever they want.
I mean, just from a top-down outlook at this game, and we have the 2 teams that they rank first and third in passing rate on first down plays outside of the fourth quarter. Buffalo's first and Tampa's third. So you got aggressive teams that no matter who they're playing in, they want to push the ball through the air. That's their MO. We know the Bills aren't going to run the football in this game. Tampa Bay will at least probably mix in a little bit. But even if you look at Leonard Fournette, it's not like Leonard Fournette's been like Jaguars Leonard Fournette. He's only run for more than 47 yards in one of his past 5 games. He's getting there for fantasy because all the high value touches. The dude has 28 catches his past 4 games, and now he trails only Jonathan Taylor in opportunities inside the 5, inside the 10, and in the red zone. It's all high value equity touches, and that's what we love. He's like the one running back that I keep going to in the slate. It's like, well, he still is. When I'm laying out this, I'm like, well, his price still looks pretty good in a game that can get there. I don't need to go and like, oh, the Bills are bad against power running teams. The Bucs aren't a power running team, so I'm not really going to glom onto that, even though Lenny has the old narrative of being a power back, because that's not how he's scoring his fantasy points this year. The dude's catching the rock and then getting into the paint. I do think that the loss of Tre'Davious White will be interesting for this particular matchup, just because. One, Mike Evans always comes in lower round than Chris Godwin. And then he's just got the ideal matchup between the guys. I mean, Dane Jackson, the second-year corner replacing Tre'Davious White. only has to come in and defend the gaggle of Saints vagabonds on Thursday night and Thanksgiving. And they face 3 pass attempts on Monday. So we haven't even seen him play, but he has 210 coverage snaps through his first 2 seasons and has allowed 110 quarterback rating when he's been targeted on that small sample of coverage snaps. So I am very interested in Mike Evans right now at this point in the week. Especially when giving his pricing compared to Godwin and the fact that he always ends up somehow lower owned than Godwin. He's definitely someone I've got my eye on early in the week.
Evans 6-6 on DK, 7-2 on FanDuel. Godwin 7-1 on DK, 7-7 on FanDuel. And you're right. I think people just like Godwin's just sexier for whatever reason. I think that's just how that goes. And Evans, you need him to catch touchdowns, which it helps him. Godwin
which is
too. But
it's wild that Chris Godwin probably also future Hall of Famer, but Evans first ballot locked in, does nothing but have 1,000-yard seasons and 10 touchdowns, and not as sexy as Godwin to everyone. Godwin always comes in he always comes in 20% more rostered, because they're always so close in salary, and everyone always goes Godwin, always.
So should we go Evans this week?
Yeah, it's like Reeves mentioned. That's kind of where I was leaning to on the outside, especially after Godwin's big game last week with Mike Evans.
How good is Gronk?
We talked about it last week, man. It's amazing. And FanDuel made tight end interesting this week because they priced all 3 guys are over 7K: Kittle, Gronk, and Kelsey. Gronk's still a little bit down. There's a little bit from Gronk on DraftKings to the top, but FanDuel made them all over 7K this week.
Yeah, it's all dependent upon how the salary cap opens up throughout the week. But right now, it's a little tricky to make it, a lineup you love with Gronk. But I suspect it'll get easier as the week progresses, and then all of a sudden you're going to do your best to get pay up. I like to pay up for tight end as a general rule on FanDuel, not always, but dependent on. And right now it's just kind of sort of tricky. So seeing how the build kind of works. I was looking at it earlier before the show. Would you select Gronk as your favorite receiver? Everything else being equal, forgetting about game stacking and all that, Rich, but just your favorite raw points tight end this week is?
I probably still would choose Evans out of the pass catchers, but I would choose Kelsey as the top tight end for sure. Blank slate, all things equal.
How much
Jared
do you love Lenny?
Obviously.
Oh man, Jared Cook's going to be. Well, we'll see. As of right now,
I think Dawson Knox is kind of interesting too in this game, especially off a primetime game everyone watched because of the weather, and then he was just bad. But he was his own worst enemy in that one. It's not like he did anything wrong. He came back from injured reserve that one game, and like Logan Thomas we talked about last week, was eased in. Tommy Sweeney even played a little bit behind him, but then the last 3 games, he's back to that elite usage while we played him before then. Running around 91% of Allen's dropbacks and an 18.5% target share in that time. So the Bucs are a tough matchup, but Knox comes in pretty sneaky too. The only issue is he is pretty expensive on DraftKings. They went ahead and made him the 5K bump.
Is Diggs going to have a Diggs game ever this year, or is that just not? Is that Fetch? Is that not going to happen?
He had one a couple weeks ago.
Well, he had one, but it's give me it more often than once a year.
Yeah, look at you, just you're so greedy. So greedy. Listen, I think Diggs is a good play. I think Cole Beasley's a really good play in this game too. If you're running Josh Allen doubles, when you look at there's a couple factors here. One, the Bucs are 26th in points allowed per game to slot receivers. Also, they play zone coverage at 75% of the time, which is the 4th highest rate in the league. And when you look at the Bills' target dispersal against zone coverage, it's Diggs at 56 and then Beasley at 51. Against man coverage, it's Diggs and then a 30 target gap to the next player. So I do think Beasley's pretty interesting. The problem with Beasley always is just touchdown equity. He has 1 touchdown on the year. So how much can he really help you? But I do think in doubles, he's interesting. You don't have projected ownership right yet. We don't have that yet. This early in the week?
I can see, but I don't think so. And I don't even know how useful it is on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I was just curious where the lean was, because I feel right now, Brady's going to be more popular than Allen, would we think, or no?
I would think so.
On FanDuel, we have Allen is 8.8K, Brady is 8.2K, and according to our projections, we got Allen a couple of points projected ahead of him for what it's worth. Okay. Well, let me ask you.
No, I meant in ownership though.
Yeah, we don't have. There's no ownership just yet,
Yeah,
but that's an interesting conversation, and it's probably going to be dependent upon how tight the cap is. That $600 could be useful, but Rich, if ownership didn't matter, salary didn't matter, you can only build one stack with this game, right? Do you want to start with Allen? Or do you want to start with Brady?
I believe I would start with Allen for a couple of reasons. One, you get the rushing equity, and two, like I just don't think that they're like this could be a game where the Bills like run 8 times, like something crazy. Now the thing about like with Josh Allen is in facing Tampa Bay, like you're going to get your face blitzed off. I mean, they blitz at the league's highest rate, and Allen has only been blitzed at the 18th highest rate. But when he has been blitzed, he's completed just 59% of his passes. That's 28th in the league. 6.5 yards per attempt. That's 26th in the league, compared to 13th in completion rate when not blitzed and 12th in yards per pass attempt. He's had 5 other games this season against teams that are top 10 in the NFL in blitz rate, and they've blitzed him 36% of his dropbacks. And his splits are even worse against the blitz against those teams that are blitz heavy. 59.7%, completion rate, 5.4 yards per pass attempt, just 2 touchdowns and interception in those games. But when those teams don't blitz him in those games, 8.2 yards per pass attempt, 68.1 completion rate, 9 touchdown passes, just 2 interceptions when the teams aren't sending extra defenders. So it's been completely like opposite ends of the spectrum of splits, even in these teams that are blitz heavy. So if the Bucs don't really just like spam blitzes at like 40% of the time, like he's still gonna have an opportunity to score and have splash plays. And we've seen the Bucs give up big games to good quarterbacks. Look at they faced 4 top 12 quarterbacks on the season: Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, and Carson Wentz. And all of those guys had great fantasy games against them.
But Tampa knows this, right? They got to have a guy. There's a guy on staff that's aware.
If I know it, I would assume Todd Bowles freaking knows it.
So they're going to blitz him, right? So who's best positioned to take advantage of that if somehow Allen finds a way? Whatever reason he's vulnerable to the blitz, he's not as not as efficient. Who's best positioned? Who's going to cut their route short? Like how would they adjust? Or if you were to put on your OC hat?
I mean, like I said, I think you go with, I think any of the 3 guys we mentioned, if you run 2 of those guys between Diggs, Beasley, and Knox, and if you can make it happen, obviously Knox has touchdown equity too. I think that those guys are great doubles if you're going to play. And then you can easily run back Fournette. You can even add Evans, and you can just go nuts on this game.
That's what we already talked about, how thin it is at running back in this slate. That's why like Jacobs and Fournette's catches are at a premium, because maybe you just take the floor with the running backs, because if they stay healthy, they're going to get like 6 to 8 targets. And that's pretty spicy in this slate.
I mean, it's a big gap. We've got Eckler and Kamara at the top, and Eckler's in a really good spot, especially if none of these receivers play, in terms of getting, being relied on in the passing game, but you have to pay for him. He's the most expensive running back on both sites. And then Kamara is in a tremendous spot in terms of matchup, but we also have him missing a month, and then the Taysom Hill factor. Like, how does Taysom Hill snake a goal line carry? Does he not throw to Kamara? Like there's these hanging elements in the air, which probably makes Kamara a really good tournament play. But you have to pay for, he's not cheap either. So, and then after those 2 guys, it's a huge gap to the field.
We might see the Saints steal that New England game plan and just run the ball 1,000 times against the Jets. I mean, why not? Did
you see the report on Taysom Hill? Like, he's not allowed to bend that finger since he elected not to have surgery. He's like not allowed to bend the finger, and it's like, how is that even possible?
I'll pay $5,600 for a running back on DraftKings. That's fine. Running back and quarterback.
Do we feel better or worse about his finger or about the dude for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow? Yeah, we got to watch some fingers this week, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, Burrow's not. I don't even know if Burrow's going to practice all week. Honestly, they may just let him coast to the game.
Yeah,
play him, but like he's not in danger of missing.
John, same question as far as if you're going to build a stack in this game. Do you prefer to start with Allen, or do you prefer to start with Brady?
Reed's made a compelling case, but I think I still like going with the Bradys. I still like Evans and Gronk, especially because perhaps like everyone will get honed in on Kelsey at the top or Cook at the bottom. And Cook was on my list anyways. I do like Cook a lot, just as the pivot guy from Jalen Guyton and Josh Palmer. But overall, yeah, I think I'd go Brady if we're paying up here.
I like the argument Rich made. I'm always a sucker for the legs. Like legs is a good tiebreaker, and Brady's legs this point,
It got me.
Yeah. I mean, every once in a while siphon that 1 yard touchdown. Like that happens on occasion.
The interesting thing is, we even talked about those, like this game could bust out too. Both of these quarterbacks, if you look at like the last month of them playing, have given us plenty of like duds too. Josh Allen's been living a roller coaster life. Even if you throw Monday out because of the elements, I mean, he still has given us, he's thrown for fewer than 6 yards per pass attempt in 3 of his previous 5 games, even throwing out Monday. And then Brady's thrown for 7 yards or fewer, in 4 of his past 5 games before last week. So like these teams have also given us a couple of down moments. Like what if both defenses are as good as kind of we think they could be? We're all holding pieces of this game.
It's also harder to pinpoint in season than off season. We can see like at least guess where the regression's coming in. But Stephon Diggs has been riding pretty hot on touchdowns too. Since week 6, he's matched Hunter Henry with a league high 9 end zone targets and converted 5 of them into touchdowns. Cooper Kupp in that span has 7 more red zone targets than Diggs, but Diggs still has as many touchdowns because like he's just hot right now. And so I just wonder if that ends here as well.
Yeah, he leads the NFL now in end zone targets.
Mm-hmm.
Your point, Rich, as far as this game could bust out theoretically and say it's like 20-17 or something like that, and nothing really gets there. But okay, you answered the first part of the question. The second part of the question is like, well, what game is going to go off? We'll talk about those individual players in a second. And you look at the list and there's like some games they're just like, yeah, I don't really want that. I don't really want that. Do you see a sneaky game like that can kind of come out of nowhere that they go, this is the game you wanted pieces of all along. We just never really thought about it.
No,
Seattle,
not really.
Houston, like what is the game?
Yeah, maybe 49ers Bengals, if you can, be coaxed into that. But yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, we've just been in a lot of spots where we've been holding 4 p.m. pieces in the air quotes game of the week, and we've not exited those situations frequently with fantasy points this season.
Yeah, the 4:00 games, Detroit at Denver. Well, I mean, again, this is Wednesday night.
Chiefs Cowboys, we loaded up on that. There's definitely more.
Even that
that
Seattle San Francisco game, like 30-23 is a very deceiving score since that first half was abysmal to see.
I mean, that's why I just want to see ownership on this, because I might even walk back on the Josh Allen things. Just in my mind, I'm thinking Brady's gonna be more popular, so it would be go to the Allen side. But we could wake up on Friday and it could be totally different.
Maybe at his price, since he's like nearly 1,500 cheaper than the rest, like Dak is just the best double stack option here on Sunday.
What are the odds that Melvin Gordon doesn't play this week? Do we have a projection for that? Is that more likely than not?
He's practicing Wednesday.
I don't think that necessarily makes Javonte Williams a bad play, particularly because his pricing got froze playing on Sunday night on both sites. Because one, they're playing the Lions, and who are just giving up buckets of running back points the entire season. So I think at 5.9 on DraftKings and 6.7 on FanDuel, given the current construct of the running back slate, I don't even think that those are bad prices for him.
Yeah, like even if he gets like 16, 17, 18 touches against Detroit at those prices, and there's a ceiling for more. It's the Lions, and seeing how that they can carry the ball 40 times against them and run Gordon and Williams both at them. And I'm just trying to think. And I guess if Gordon was ruled out, everyone would play Williams anyway.
Oh
so
yeah, he'd be the most popular kind of slate.
I mean, I wouldn't even care about the chalk. I just play him. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the ownership is, got to be over it, because like I can't even imagine. But it's the NFL.
You're not allowed to say bad things about Chris Godwin and Javonte Williams. Those are like everyone's sons. They get completely offended if you say bad things about him.
Have you ever felt the wrath? Have you ever said anything kind of like not even negative, but like not massively complimentary on Twitter, and all of a sudden the people come at you, the mob comes at you, and they're not happy? Has that ever happened?
No. Just you can tell that everyone loves Javonte Williams. Everyone loves Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams and Tony Pollard are falling off a cliff. Who does Twitter say first?
Now, I will say, I will say bad things about Tony Pollard's usage. Yeah,
they love themselves some Tony Pollard.
They love playing 8-touch running backs. Congratulations.
Hey, he's going to be starting for me, I think, in my season long this week.
Well, he may
It's a
not
big
play, so rethink that.
Well, sure. On the fly, we'll figure something out. And we're going to lose. I picked up Hasty, so that's my plan B. And
They signed
I
a couple running backs today too, right? The Cowboys.
Yeah. They signed who was it? Like, we're down literally to the garbage pile. We're down to the dumpster beers of the running backs. I can't remember exactly.
The Niners added Brian Hill, and then the Cowboys definitely added another
onto their
Clement?
practice.
Yeah, Corey Clement.
Edo Smith. I thought it was Edo Smith to their practice squad, Corey Clement to the active roster, I thought.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's
That's what
also
we're down
we're
to
signing a
this
couple
year.
guys. Isn't that kind of like a sign that like maybe one of those dudes doesn't play? Is that?
Yes.
I mean, it's just still early, but
Tony Pollard sounds pretty serious. Tony Pollard sounds like he's very much in danger of missing.
well, that's a bummer. Is Hasty going to be a thing? I saw you talking about him on your show, Daigle, and I saw you writing about him in your article, and I spent a lot of fab on him because I had a bunch left over, and I'm like, I guess we're crossing our fingers that a bunch of guys out for San Francisco. Is that the potential that can happen here?
You can't take it to your coffin with you, so you might as well spend it. It's going to come down to Jeff Mitchell, since they're just literally depleted. Like, Trenton Cannon doesn't even have a touch, and even he's not available because he's injured. Trey Sermon, I believe, season-ending IR. Elijah Mitchell doesn't seem good to go right now. He seems like it's much more serious than they're leading on. Jeff Wilson was limited on Wednesday, though.
Dude, how was he allowed to come back in the game? He was asleep on the field.
I don't know. I have no idea. It's the same thing, though, whenever he hurt his finger and didn't tell anyone too. I understand like the head injury is much more serious, but yeah, this is just like the 49ers organization, like this is why they're always injured as well, because the way they handle their
Kittle
injuries.
Kittle was like calling for people to come on the field because I swear he was asleep on that play. He got elbowed in the head. And then he didn't miss a snap. He came back in the next drive because that was a third down carry. And I was like, oh, this dude's done for the day. And he was just in the next drive. And then Monday they said he reported symptoms. I was like, oh yeah.
He re-entered on Monday the protocol, and like we've seen everything this year. I've never seen a player re-enter this year yet. That was a first.
We may also get Debo back this week, so maybe he'll be taking some carries, right? Possibly.
Maybe back. We're still we're at the time of the year, Dean. Where everything. It's
Maybe.
like if you think this show's exciting, just wait till week 17. We're gonna be very touch and go.
Hit the like button if you're finding this information helpful.
And we talked about the matchups, and we got some more matchups and players to talk about.
Yeah, it's the best we can do on a Wednesday. All right. We do want to mention our favorite plays position by position. Before we do that, I want to talk about the sponsor. Do appreciate Jock Market. Jock Market for sponsoring the show. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. You buy and you sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now. 100% deposit match up to $50. Use the promo code Grinders. That's GRINDERS. Now get this. If you do not turn a profit this week, Jock Market, what they're going to do is they're going to cover your losses in your very first event. Download Jock Market in the app or Play Stores, or check out jockmarket.com. That's JOCKMKT.com. Again, use the promo code Grinders. 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit. We kind of hinted at it, Daigle, as far as some quarterbacks, and feel free to throw some out there, but it looks like we're gonna get Taysom Hill and his finger and his 9-10 fingers, give or take, against the Jets to be fairly popular because he's super, super cheap and he runs the ball a bunch. Are you in on that?
Yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, it's the Jets. We just saw Gardner Minshew complete 20 to 26 passes. So of course, especially if we get the 100-yard rushing bonus in particular on DraftKings. I don't know if I'm interested on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, super interesting. We've also seen, Hill scramble on 50 of 188 of his dropbacks this year. So we know he's a run first quarterback, or I'm sorry, not this year, in his last 5 starts, dating back to those 4 starts last year as well. So we know like exactly what he's going to do. Yes, that one play to Deontay Harris, the 70-yard touchdown to cap the game, was the difference between him finishing as the QB6 or the QB23 on the entire week. But overall, like, we know what Taysom Hill is going to do, and it's just an amazing matchup. So in on him. And then I think Cam Newton also has an argument to make. I can't imagine anyone will want to play Cam Newton after he's benched, but also like we know the Dolphins defense, since they got healthy in week 9 and since they started playing nothing but like St. Mary's School for the Blind teams that they've been an awesome coverage unit. Since week 9, they lead the league in sacks with the second most interceptions. And that's the team Cam Newton got benched by. Like, we should not be ashamed by that. We shouldn't evaluate off that one game. And we know if he's healthy, like, he's going to use his legs as well. 56% of his fantasy points have come on the ground. That's what he's going to do. And so I think both quarterbacks have awesome spots this week.
Yeah, Hill looks like a better play dollar for dollar on DK than he does on FanDuel, just kind of shopping as far as the prices. Your thoughts as far as those two running quarterbacks, and anybody else you want to add to the conversation there, Rich?
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with either of those guys. I think all signals point towards Carolina being able to do what Matt Rule believes he wants to do. Home favorites against the Falcons. They could literally maybe throw the ball fewer than 20 times in this game, especially with Cam. You run Hubbard. The first 2 times when these teams played earlier in the year, that's what they did with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. They just ran all over them. Hubbard had 23 carries in that game. So, maybe even he ends up being kind of one of these guys just because of the game script where we don't really see Abdullah yet. We see Abdullah later in the season when their schedule gets really rough, and gives Hubbard maybe some life in this dead zone of pricing for these running backs. But I actually am interested, especially on FanDuel, in Lamar Jackson, especially because he's the same price basically as Taysom Hill. And you're talking about someone that nobody really likes to click on now, even though he's going to keep popping probably in optimals, is Lamar. And, the one interesting thing is that teams have gotten blitz heavy on Lamar, but the Browns don't do that. The Browns don't blitz a lot. They're 21st in the NFL in blitz rate. They only blitzed Lamar on 26% of his dropbacks when these two teams played 2 weeks ago. He just gave them the football a lot of times.
4 interceptions.
4 interceptions. But I think people will see those 4 interceptions too and say, especially piling on the narrative that they've been bad, and that's not even a narrative. They've just been bad the last month, and not really want to play him. But here's the thing. As bad as Lamar Jackson's been, he's been a top 12 scorer still in 3 of his past 4 games. He's still scoring points. The floor is high. He hasn't had a rushing touchdown since week 2. I believe he's going to have another rushing touchdown this season. I don't know if it'll be this Sunday, but I believe there will be more. But I think with the Browns not being a team that's going to blitz, which has been the MO to attack Lamar Jackson, and the fact I just don't believe he's going to throw 4 interceptions again against them, and given his pricing being the same, on FanDuel, he basically is priced the same as Hill and Cam Newton. And I definitely am interested in some tournament Lamar Jackson in that scenario.
It's too thin, but like all the reasons you mentioned were also why, like, when I first started looking earlier this week, I was like, Baker Mayfield is now healthy off of a bye. Well, we assume he's going to be the healthiest he'll be for the rest of the year. I was like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting in this game, but I rode that streak with the Steelers and Ravens last week, and let me tell you, it's not exciting when you watch it.
I actually played some Lamar stacks too, and had one sneak out. I probably would have won more money if I didn't have Lamar, but paid down at quarterback. But it is an interesting matchup. Mayfield just you can make the argument for the Browns passing game, but they just don't have any pieces right now. It's just I think Jarvis is a good play though. If he plays.
I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is kind of interesting in this game as well.
There it is. Comes full circle.
Well, like he probably will come in second in target share, but like we know the targets have to go somewhere. Austin Hooper, everyone's going to play him. Some people may get to Jarvis Landry, but Donovan Peoples-Jones arguably still has a higher ceiling, not a higher floor than Landry, but a higher ceiling. And remember, like that game before the bye, like Baker Mayfield finally delivered a accurate deep ball, and Peoples-Jones just dropped it too. So I think he is. This game is somewhat sneaky. I did see it early in the week and thought, okay, I maybe get on this one.
Does anybody want to sell me on Russ getting right here against Houston? Or again, Pete Carroll, just Adrian Peterson's back. Let's give Peterson 22 carries. Or, come on. I
can be talked into the receivers, but I'm not gonna be talked into Russ having like a ton of pass attempts here.
Yeah, this is kind of the conversation I was having before with you, Rich. I was asking you, like, what if you're right about those quarterbacks, that Buffalo Tampa game not breaking out? Like, that's certainly possible. It's a scenario, but tell me the game that like is a quarterback that I want, that I really, really want. And that's also speaks to like why we're spending down, on something like Taysom Hill that we're looking at, or even looking at a Cam Newton type and spending money up, because it's so weird to be like Zach Wilson, who nobody wants any of that. Trevor Lawrence, just I don't know if he's not it or he's not it just yet. Doesn't seem like it. It's just really, Matt Ryan just getting crushed every single week. Like I feel bad for him at this point, like watching him just trying to move and getting sacked. It's rough. I don't. There's no good quarterbacks.
There's no good players. I try to spread out the 3 games every week. I assure you, we will probably never talk about the Falcons or the Jaguars ever again for the rest of this show, the rest of the season.
They've been redacted.
No, I mean,
Teddy versus the Lions.
Look at the NFL the past month, though. I mean, passing is way down. Passing production is really flatlined in the NFL. Points are down. Everything's down. And scoring is way down over the past month. It's because passing is bad. So, I mean, it's not just the Chiefs and Bills narrative of, the cover 2 shell and the buzz phrase. I mean, it's NFL passing offenses are been not good. You heard me when I just brought up Brady's. Like, Brady's been bad, the large sample over the past 6 weeks. It's a league-wide thing where, passing games have really been kind of mushed the past 5 weeks.
The games on Sunday were at least good. I felt like it's been a month since we saw a good game. So I will give credit to the games on Sunday. That slate was fun. But yeah, the scoring definitely, like Rich said, it's absolutely, and you could tell. You can tell when you watch it's been down.
Yeah, we just burned through our primetime equity early in the season when the NFL started doing all the primetime games are good. And then last week we get the Sunday night game is a bore. And then Monday night has three passes from a team.
Whenever Geno Smith was on 3 primetime games in a row, we knew we were in due. Like, that's when we knew.
True?
Avalanche was coming.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, 3 straight. Do you remember that part of the season, Dean? Do you remember that exciting part of the year?
I remember he came in to relieve Russ, and I guess that did happen on a Sunday night. I feel like I forgot it happened 3 times in a row.
Thursday.
Did they play Thursday? Did they play Monday?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man,
not
just
fun.
The worst.
Hey, we get the Bears this Sunday night. At least it won't be Dalton.
Justin Fields.
Yeah, he's fun. At least he's exciting. I
would be here touting. I'd be touting MVS if that game was in the main slate.
There you go. Chargers, Chiefs are next Thursday. We've got something to kind of maybe look forward
to. Speaking of the Chargers, that's kind of where we're starting at as far as running backs, I think, Rich. Eckler versus Giants, and it'll lead to a question of like how many Chargers is too many Chargers, depending on just kind of how like lineup building goes. If they're without the receivers, and who knows, speculation. But there's a lot of cheap pass catchers potentially for the Chargers this week coming up. I don't know if I want too many of them, but Eckler is like the clear and obvious awesome play. I know he was banged up on a Wednesday, but I assume he's good to go. Stay tuned on that. But that's the place for starting. He's the best running back on the slate, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, he's got 15 touchdowns on the season, dual threat asset, could get influx of receiving targets based on the layout. I mean, it is a bummer that the Chargers finally seemingly unlocked Justin Herbert and let him throw the ball downfield on early downs. And then the week after, we're not going to have any receivers healthy for him. But yeah, I think Eckler, you get to pay for it. He's the most expensive running back for a reason, but he deservedly is so based on his production so far to this point in the season.
Who else do you have on your list?
I mean, I want you guys to tell me, find me some running backs. I'm looking at Eckler and I'm looking at Leonard Fournette. I'm starting to coax myself into Alvin Kamara, but again, like with the salary cap, like those guys are all expensive. Like, it's not hard to make the argument. Find me some middle round and some cheap guys. I need you guys to pull some guys for you. Why is Dontrell Hilliard priced so much differently than Deontay Foreman? Have we solved that?
No, we have not, especially after like, I complained last week about it. No, I won't start again. We don't know why.
Dontrell Hilliard is $7,000 on FanDuel.
I didn't
he had
realize
that one
that.
like 70-yard touchdown, right? Is that what it was? It was Hilliard that had it, I think.
Yeah,
right?
but like his role is by far the
for?
most fragile between the two because Jerry McNichols hasn't played the past 2 weeks.
It has to be just the algorithm because he's the one everyone rostered before the bye, right?
I guess so. He's $7,000, and Deontay Foreman is 5'9".
That's
I don't want to play either one of them. Like in theory, tell me, John. Tell me I don't have to play these.
I can get talked into some 5'9" to Deontay Foreman.
I can get talked into Foreman as well. I don't know if I'll get there. I prefer like Hubbard in a vacuum, even though I think naked Cam is really interesting on this slate still, especially because, like I already mentioned, no one's going to play him. But yeah, like I could be talking to Foreman. He's a better play than Hilliard was 2 weeks ago.
I don't want to mess with Carroll. I mean, yeah, like they got rid of their OC because I guess he wanted to pass the ball too much, or he seemed to the least what Joe what's the dude's name? You guys
Joe Brady.
know it. Joe Brady. Yeah. I guess they want to run the ball. They want to establish the run there in Carolina. And like, they don't have the pieces to do anything there offensively, obviously, but against Atlanta, I suppose Hubbard can be good. That's never not worked out for us playing Hubbard. Oh, yeah, no, multiple times that's happened for me this season. Abdullah's lurking as well. Kamara, we talked about, if he comes back, he might get his touchdown siphoned from his quarterback. Saquon Barkley is just, go ahead.
I was to say that Kamara, now it doesn't help us get a cheap running back. We still need some help here, but yeah, Kamara is still the one I think is really interesting, just because he was practicing before last week. They just held him out because they weren't ready for the short turnaround. Since that was when he first returned to practice for that game. And so now to practice all this week, and then Mark Ingram on the COVID list, so we may not get him. Like, they're not going to give touches to Tony Jones. It'll just be all Kamara to keep Taysom Hill healthy as well. So I think he's an awesome play. Probably like my favorite spin up play.
Yeah, but Eckler, you like him more than Eckler?
I do. I like Kamara more than Eckler. Yeah. Tournament play.
Yeah. And we talked about Gibson, especially if McKissick is not playing. Fournette, we talked about as well too. So
McKissick would be the one we get cheap. Jeff Wilson, if he starts, we've seen that already twice now, or no, one time where even Hasty will only be third down option. Now Wilson can probably be a guy also you're comfortable with fading, since he won't get targets. That'll be Hasty and Juszczyk, but he's still got 20 carries. He still got 20 carries in that one game, and he was open in the end zone that one game. Garoppolo overthrew him. So
doesn't it scare you though that he's got all this stuff going on? Like the guys that like I follow, Edwin Portis, he came back earlier than expected, and he's already had a knee injury in a game that forced him to leave and during practice. Like, all this thing is signals that like his body is saying like, I shouldn't be playing football right now.
Yes, it does scare me, to answer your question. Still may play him, but it does scare me.
And with Swift most likely out, it still doesn't matter, right? Because that Lions backfield's a mess anyway. Like, what are we going to do with Jamal? 40% of the snaps, 45%? We don't want any of that, do we? And it's not even a great matchup against Denver. It's also a terrible team. Why do we want in Lions this week? We don't. That's correct.
So that's the argument you would have. Like, you'd have to sell yourself or have some kind of edge and say, well, like, if the Lions dominate this game, that Jamal Williams isn't a good spot, because he still had 17 carries. Like, the overall usage was bad, terrible, actually. I was shocked that he only played 47% of the snaps. He saw 1 of 4 running back targets. Godwin Igwebuike was played like Swift, just minus the early down carries. He ran 26 routes to Williams 9. It's like Williams wasn't even a pass catching back. But if they're in a game script or whatever where they can just hand off to Williams 28 times, they will. And so that's kind of the argument you'd have to make. I probably won't make that argument, but that's the argument you'd have to make.
Rich, did we say what anybody?
Zeke has been so bad that he's cheaper than Dontrell Hilliard. I'm still blown away at Dontrell Hilliard at 7K. I just can't even believe like we're here.
Yeah. Also, we didn't excite you, did we, Rich? The guys we just talked about, nobody gets like, oh wow, I forgot about him. I didn't even realize he was on.
No, I mean, this is why I keep coming back to Javonte Williams at his pricing. Like, the way this slate is laid out, it's like, well, if I need money because I want to play a good quarterback and I want to play Austin Eckler or Alvin Kamara, and I definitely want to play good receivers and potentially Travis Kelce or a good tight end, like, where am I going to get the salary relief? And I just keep coming back to Javonte Williams and this just gaggle of awful pricing down here, and saying, well, yeah, like, I can make a pretty good case that he's still underpriced.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm excited either way.
And maybe, like I said, things open up. Maybe things open up as the week progresses, but there is not a lot to love down here at the running back position. Did the chat give us anybody? Chat, did you give us a guy to play down here? Do you like Deontay Foreman or Rashad Penny or any of these other guys?
I had technical issues before the show, so I lost my second screen, which had my chat open. So I don't know what the chat is saying. If they're saying, they could be dropping dime, like, phenomenal stuff in there for all I know. What up, chat?
They could be winning slate right now.
I don't know what they're saying. They're probably pointing out the great.
Probably
you guys
saying
not talking about this person.
Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about Peterson. I mentioned like sarcastically, but he's probably going to have like 17 carries for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's going to happen.
I mean, you still have Cordero Patterson out there. He keeps finding a way to get there, but he's expensive. I mean, it's just, where are these guys, man? Where are the guys? I'm lost this week. Someone's got to get me there.
Even Russell Gage went up. Gage isn't a bad play. Then Russell Gage went up.
John, speaking of Russell Gage, give me some receivers that we're excited about this week.
We'll not talk about Russell Gage, even though he did get us there last week. If you played with your Bucks, it was a good play. No, I mean, I already talked about Donovan Peoples-Jones. I ruined my best play. That's kind of honestly because we talked about all the games I'm playing, like those 3 games where I'm focusing my receivers. I only have Jarvis Landry and Donovan Peoples-Jones written down. So, Rich, give me some other receivers you like.
See those names and raise them. You got to be able to raise them with those names. Terrible.
Well,
names.
I said I mentioned Jarvis too in the same game, over 25% of team targets and 5 of the past 6. No Marlon Humphrey had 100 yards 2 weeks ago against the Ravens. I think he's pretty interesting. So maybe we're talking ourselves into Baker Mayfield stacks because Austin Hooper is going to be really popular as well. You guys are going to hate this one, but I actually think Laviska Shenault's a decent play this week.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Westbrook or Cannon, but go ahead. Tell me about Laviska Shenault.
Well, I mean, so when teams play the Tennessee Titans, they target their slot receiver more than any other wide receiver on the field, and they're 32nd in the NFL. As opposed to opposing slot receivers, when the Jaguars played the Titans earlier in the season, Jamal Agnew was targeted 8 times out of the slot. That's now Treadwell's position. So, I mean, no one wants to click that button, but he's so cheap, man. He's your Deontay Foreman run back.
Since that's what we're focusing on. Especially because
5-3 on FanDuel.
Treadwell 900 cheaper on DraftKings than Laviska.
Is he?
Yeah, he's 900 cheaper.
But
they don't budge Laviska. Laviska could do nothing. They don't budge.
I also have no problem with DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett for the reasons that Dean tried to push me to on Russ. But I mean, Houston is just so bad defensively against the vertical pass. I mean, they're allowing a league high 52% completion rate on throws 15 yards or further downfield. That's been Lockett's game so far, but I mean, we know that like Metcalf was really close last week to get in there. And I know that doesn't help anyone that played him in season long or even in DFS. But man, he got tackled at the 2-yard line. He had a touchdown where he had 1 foot in bounds. Then he was wide open on one other deep ball that Russ overthrew. He still has 8 or more targets in 3 of his past 4 games. He's kind of a direct pivot off of a number of guys we talked about. I mean, he's basically on FanDuel the same price as Mike Evans. And cheap, like no one's going to want it. I hate using that phrase. I can't believe I almost did it too, but I can see either Seattle receiver being really good too this week.
John, I don't like this. I don't. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but I'm not sure if we worked this out just yet. But if the possibility of stuff opens up there as far as the Chargers, like Jalen Guyton's 3-4 on DK, 5-2 on FanDuel, very, very exciting name. If you don't like Jalen Guyton, how do you feel about Joshua Palmer? Joshua Palmer on DK is, I believe, still minimum. I want to say he's 3K. I'm fairly certain of that. My page is not opening. There it is. And he's 4-7 on FanDuel. Have you thought this through or thought that far ahead, or you'll get there if it happens?
The 2 cheapy Chargers receivers that everyone's going to play isn't really my style. Donovan Peoples-Jones taking that egg is my style. So I'll probably just find a way to pivot off the 2-3K cheap guys. If you told me to pick one, it's Jalen Guyton for me, who we've seen I don't watch a lot of NBA, but I think isn't Dwayne Dedman, Dean, someone that plays like 8 minutes a night? He actually starts, but then he comes off the field within 8 minutes because that's all he can do at the start of every half.
He's a starter for the Miami Heat now because Bam Adebayo is out with the thumb, but he's not necessarily a lock to close. So that's kind of what you're getting at. But he'll still play so 25 minutes.
Josh Palmer gets the start over Jalen Guyton every week, but it doesn't matter. Jalen Guyton still runs more routes than him. Also, he's the deep threat that profiles as such. He's been used as such also the past year or 2 with the Chargers. He just also, like Javon Wims, he comes in, if you look at targets per route run, he comes in bottom 3 in the every single season. But, when there's no one else to throw to, sure, why not? That's where I go to, especially after Herbert, as Reeves mentioned earlier in the show, fresh off a 10.7 depth of target. Overall, after he was bottoms on early downs through until week 13. So, yeah, I think Guyton over Palmer for me. He's a fine prospect. It just doesn't show up in the box score because Tennessee's quarterbacks are so bad. And thus, he didn't do anything in college, but overall, that's where I would lean. But I'm going to. What about?
Are we looking for reasons to not just to keep playing Elijah Moore at this point? At his price, remember Ayuk at the end of last season, where his price wasn't really moving, but he was just getting 8 to 10 targets a week, but his price wasn't moving. That's kind of where we are with Elijah Moore, right?
Yep. Elijah Moore totally. Yeah, that one slipped my mind. That's a great one too.
He's got over
Davis
30% of the team targets the last 3 games. And they're not going to be all efficient targets from Zach Wilson, but like at that price and that target value, where can you get that kind of target value and scoring upside at that kind of pricing on both sites? I mean, he's 5'9" on DraftKings and he's 6'3" on FanDuel. It's pretty solid. It's pretty solid pricing.
That's your little that's Kamara Taysom run back too.
12 targets last week, 8 the week prior, 11 the week before that. And Davis is done for the year.
He's out for the year.
Out for the year. And Davis played a couple weeks ago, this past week, in the first half a little bit before he got injured. But more of the past 2 games still run around on over 90% of the Jets dropbacks. Like, it's no longer a question about his usage. The usage is like Dallas Goedert. It's elite. It's just a matter of does Zach Wilson hit him or not? Kind of like what we're dealing with Baker Mayfield targets right now. So why don't we just throw Elijah Moore Mayfield stacks and call it a day?
But we've spoken way too long about this slate. Let's knock out some tight ends and get out of here. We all hate it. It seems like we despise this. Like, we're gonna play it.
No, it's fun.
Play it for sure.
I like the new caveat of not having someone to pick, as opposed to this past week there were too many to pick.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, John. Well, I'll yield to you. Tell me some tight ends that you may be partaking. May land on your roster that we've not yet discussed. I guess Kittle, sure. He was a monster last week. He was unleashed. And maybe if Debo comes back, if that happens, maybe he falls back a little bit as far as usage. Still really good, obviously. We mentioned Jared Cook a couple times, probably a couple times too many, but he's going to be a guy people are talking about. Maybe Kyle Pitts, this is the week. Maybe not. John, what do you have for me as far as tight ends?
Yeah, it's never the week for Kyle Pitts, unfortunately. We talked about Jared Cook too much already. Just no show has said his name as much as we have throughout the show. Hinted on it a little bit. Austin Hooper, interesting just because they have no one else to play, most likely. David Njoku on COVID list. Harrison Bryant out multiple weeks. And so just to get now like every down receiving threat, Austin Hooper, like he was in Atlanta, it's certainly interesting, especially in a matchup that seems to be coming in like sneaky if both offenses hit. Again, like both offenses haven't hit in some time, but I still think it's a good one. And then we already talked about Dawson Knox. That was kind of my other on the radar. And then Foster Moreau, I still wouldn't mind playing in that game. That's kind of like where I have my pool shallowed down to. We tried to get cute in some instances with Ram stacks with James O'Shaughnessy last week, but we also saw that maybe this is the telltale of what happens with Laviska Shenault. Like getting the leading target receiver for the Jaguars, it just ultimately doesn't matter. Like the guys, O'Shaughnessy still got 6 targets. He finished with 13 yards. It just doesn't matter at all. So that their offense right now is just a complete disaster. So that's pretty much where I'm going to finish my tight end pool.
Looks like a person named Miller Forrestall is the second tight end currently on the depth chart for Cleveland. 2 last names. Never heard of him. I see proof. Though.
Actually,
I see. You've heard of him?
I did not know that.
I don't know. I mean, he might be a blocking tight end. It's maybe worth digging into at some point. But
that's a great tight end name, though.
It is, yeah. Miller Forrestall. Like he catches all the 1-yard touchdowns.
Yeah, like for sure. I totally could see that happening.
We did say a couple weeks ago that this is the time of the year where the Jesper Horsted start to pop up, and Miller Forrestall is definitely the Jesper Horsted of Week 14.
Miller Forrestall, I love that. I hope he scores a touchdown now. I'm outright rooting for it at this point. Or Trey McKinney to score a touchdown after Jared Cook week, or Parker Hesse or whoever these other guys are down here at the bottom. These backup tight ends. I mean, I just keep starting. How are you going to say that my man looks like Beetlejuice from Howard Stern? Like,
it's actually a really good call. When Jamito said it, like I can't not see it now.
I mean, wow, picture. Like that. I mean, but wow, like it's.
Yeah, it's not the most flattering thing to say, probably. We mean it the most positive possible way. But yeah, you're just staring at his picture now. Devin, can you put the picture up on the screen for the people to show them what Jared Cook looks like?
I don't want to be associated with this.
I don't either. I don't know why. I just figured at this point people are going to be looking for it anyway. But yeah,
if you Google it, there's a whole Reddit thread from 2017 just saying Jared Cook looks like Beetlejuice.
Oh my god!
This is what we do on Week 14, man. This is what. Do you want to talk about Miller Forrestall instead?
I apologize, Jared Cook. My man, oh, that's so dirty.
Save the segment, Rich. Just throw out a tight end.
It's so dirty, I can't, man.
Just
He's
mention Kenny Yeboah or
Beetle.
something.
He's as bad as Ken, and he knows he's the best.
I love
This
I
is
that.
what-
can't have it out of tight ends, man.
This is what Week 14 has done to us right now.
Oh my god, I can't, man. You guys said my man looks like Beetlejuice.
I'm just a messenger.
What? Oh, we talked about all these. We talked about all these bad players.
We talked about all tight ends.
I was trying to find Miller Forrestall's college stats. Apparently, he went to Alabama. Wait, college state? Yeah, he went to Alabama.
Oh, for real?
Apparently, yeah.
I'm
So there's
so
people out there
good.
listening, like, how do you not know who this guy is?
I'm pretty adept
but-
at my scouting, and I've never heard of a Miller Forrestall.
of the Forrestalls.
He caught 23 passes for 250 yards and 1 touchdown in his final year. That's
There
probably
you
why I
go.
never heard of him. Yeah.
He's going to catch 2 touchdowns this week. It's going to be absolutely
Please,
amazing.
I want him to, please.
2-5 on DK.
Burn it all to the ground. End it all. Let's do
Rich,
it.
Rich, we got anything else? We can't top what we've already thrown out there. Anything else for the road? Anything else that's worth
Yeah, I
noting?
mean-
Anything that people should be monitoring as far as
Dontrell
Up to
hit it
Sunday.
at a 7K.
that's the one egregious price you have with DK. That's the one that just sticks it. Yeah.
I
Of all
just
the prices they throw out there throughout the season.
week 14, Dontrell Hilliard 7K. More than Zeke Elliott, more than Javonte Williams, more than
Is it Kamara like
Every-
7'9"?
no. He's this is on FanDuel, but
Okay. Making sure.
I mean he's the same price as DeAndre Swift and 100 cheaper than Josh Jacobs, more than Javonte Williams, 500K more than Chuba Hubbard, more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
Okay.
Kareem Hunt. Like,
We don't
what
have to
the
analyze
hell,
where
man?
Dr. Hilliard is according to every running back.
The
It's
hell?
okay.
The hell?
Rich is just done though. That's it. He checked out. He can't take it anymore. Do you know how Daigle, you know how you make your tweet every single Thursday and you kind of give like a little summary of the show? Like, oh, we talk about X and Y and Z. There's like a 98% chance that Jared Cook is somewhere in there and Beetlejuice is mentioned, right? Or so there's like an insinuation. I feel like that's going to be somewhere in the tweet.
I'll probably mention we discussed Beetlejuice in some capacity. Yes. And you have to
That
click to
gets the
find out.
clicks. John, is there anything else we should mention before we step aside and get out of here? Tell the people where they can find
Boy,
you.
I think we touched on just about everything you could in life. So it is week 14. It is at Not J Daigle on Twitter. Beetlejuice is a good movie. I still need to see the musical, by the way. I love musicals and I haven't seen it just yet. So we'll end on that.
We're wrong, Beetlejuice.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
He had a cameo appearance in Bubble Boy, by the way, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm not sure if you saw that, but he's in that movie. He plays himself, I think. Doesn't matter. Go on IMDb. It's probably on there. Rich,
No,
tell
this
the
whole
people where they
time
can
I was
find you.
thinking the musical. I was like, oh, it's not that funny. Now I get the joke. Okay. We're moving on now.
Yeah, it's a different guy. Yeah, it's one of the characters on the Stern Show over the years.
Correct.
Yeah, different guy. Not Michael Keaton. By the way, I think they're making a second one, like 20 years too late. There's a sequel coming for Beetlejuice. It's gonna happen. Get excited.
Well, I've gone the whole hour thinking Michael Keaton. I was like, yeah, Jared Cook doesn't look like Michael Keaton. Whatever.
No, it's not Michael
That's all
Keaton.
that's all week 14 is done. It's warped all our brain.
Rich, where can the people find you? It's week 14. They all know where to find you, but we have to just in case.
No,
The
he
one guy
said there was
who's
that
listening
one
for the
new
first
guy
time.
that came to the show. At Lord Reeves on Twitter, sharpfootballanalysis.com. Every Wednesday night with my guys, Daigle and Dean.
That was the NFL Pick Six show. Hopefully you guys, the table is set for y'all for week 14. Of course, stay tuned. Information will be flowing all the way up to Sunday. That was Rich Hribar. That was John Daigle. That was football. I was Dean. RotoGrinders. We're out of here. Holler.